Awesome. Thank you very much, guys, for tuning into our podcast. And thank you very much to Stefano.
It's a big pleasure to be here with you guys.
Right. I mean, look, the pleasure is all mine. I'm sure of all the ones that are listening and will be listening. Let me give you a bit of a background as to why you're here and actually what we're trying to do with the podcast. So when Ricardo and I were looking at topics to develop, we realized that in our careers sometimes we get stuck. We don't know what to do next. We also saw that with some of our friends. So the questions we really had for ourselves was, if we had to create a next step, well, how can we go about it without using the traditional frameworks that perhaps we learned in our career or we learned in our educational years? And that's the purpose of the podcast, is finding out those people like yourself who they took a non-conventional path, or they thought about their careers in different ways, so that perhaps we could get some insights that can get our gears in our brain to move and start rolling. So that's really how we came about the podcast. Ricardo gave me a bit of a view of what you do, what you've done, where you've been, and I think for us that was the number one reason why we decided you should definitely be on the podcast. But look, enough about me or about Ricardo. I think the floor is yours.
So, Stefan, why don't you describe yourself, what you've done in the last 10 years? Just very briefly, because I'm sure we're going to talk about all your different steps and adventures in a minute. But tell us about your last 10 years.
In the past 10 years, I've been a soccer referee. I've been a chief entertainer in tourist resort in Mauritius Island, Dominican Republic, and Greece mainly. I have been graduating in the oldest university of the world, in Bologna University, in history. This is my graduation. I've been owning an Airbnb in the center of Modena that has over 300 reviews, positive reviews, hopefully. After COVID, I've been working for Domino's Pizza as an assistant store manager. And I've been working last winter as a cook. And finally, now I'm working as a tour leader for Backroads, which is an American company that organized bike tours around the world.
Quite a few changes over the last 10 years. And I think one first question we have is, what's the spark, that got you started? You mentioned you graduated from one of the oldest universities in the world. Usually when people graduate, they embark on their office careers, or maybe some of them perhaps they start companies, but usually there is a very specific set of roads that people take. But you decided to defy that path. So what got you started? What was the spark? How did you decide that I want to do this path, I want to go down this road and not the traditional way?
First of all, I did university just to go in Erasmus. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. The university I chose was never related to a particular job that I wanted to do. It was mainly to construct a cultural background, to learn. I think that literature, philosophy, history, humanities in general are not quite linked to a future career. I see them mostly as building a cultural background to be able to interact with different cultures around the world. And as I've always loved, my main passion has always been to travel like other million people in the world. I decided to create, let's say, this cultural background, studying literature of different countries, study history of different countries. It gives you the key to have a great interaction with different people. Studying Russian literature, for example, gave me the key to interact with Russian customer in my job as entertainer, which is not easy if you don't know anything about Russia, for example, or give me the possibility to interact with a lot of American customers in my current job and in my B&B when I had the Airbnb in Modena. So studying those things was just simply the key to access different cultural backgrounds. And this is why you don't see a relation between my graduation and the job I'm doing.
Stefano, it seems to me there is a common denominator, like a fil rouge in everything you're saying, because you love travel. Tell us a bit about that, how travel has influenced your life, and has it affected also your choices here, the steps you have just described to us?
I think that travel is connected with this passion I had since I was a kid for literature. The more you read books, the more you travel with your mind, and the more you want to, I think, transform this knowledge that you get of faraway places. You want to transform it into action if you are an active person. And I've always been an active kid. I've always been an active man, I would say. I hate when there are periods in your life that you have nothing to do. I always try to find new challenges, and travel is one of those. So since I was 18, the challenge was to travel with almost no money in my pocket. And that led automatically to looking for adventure, because this is the best way to travel when you have just few euros in your pocket. I got passionate about this, and this is how it all started. This link between literature and travel pushed me always to look for new challenges, not only on the job, not only in love sometimes, but also in travel. So my travels started as city breaks and got more and more adventures, advancing with the time, let's say. And I found more interesting to face those challenges in different type of travels than doing the same travel that everyone do normally.
So how did you go about doing that? It sounds exciting. Deciding to just moving around despite any financial limitations or logistical limitations. So how did you go about doing it from a more operational point of view? How did you manage to go from one place to another? People listening will be thinking, "Oh, that sounds great, but I need money to be able to travel." But how did you manage that sort of limitation?
I had to do some sacrifice because there was no other choice. For example, I opened an Airbnb. It was a second flat of my parents. So let's say I started from a good point, because my father had the availability of this flat for 3 years. And he moved me in, tried to help me and gave me this flat. But on the other side, he told me, from this point on, I have no chance to help you again financially. So build your own independence. So what did I do? I was still studying at university. I was still a soccer referee. So I had some pocket money coming in from weekend jobs. And I decided to go to sleep on a little veranda, on a little bed, under the boiler of my flat. And I was renting out my private room. So I trade my privacy, I trade my comfort to make some money more to be able to travel. So my flat, Ricky, you know it, you have been visiting me, was very small. And I was renting my private room, and I was renting also the couch on the living room. So the only place where I was sleeping for several months, because the place was full booked all the time, was a little bed under the boiler of the house, so in a
Wow.
very uncomfortable position. And by side, because I was not renting it for a lot of money, as you can imagine, by side, I was offering to cook dinner for my guests to make some extra pocket money. So that's how I built, let's say, between this, the cooking for the guests, and the soccer referee weekends, I was more or less earning an average Italian salary, let's say, before taxes. So I had to pay taxes on that, and that was reducing a bit the amount of money I had in my pocket. Another particular thing I was doing, I was offering guests of my B&B to go for a mountain experience on the Pietra di Bismantova. So I have to admit, with no titles at all to do this. I just brought them on a campsite on the Pietra di Bismantova, and I was building up the tent for them, building up a fire camp so they could live the Appennino Reggiano mountain experience. It was a little bit of a borderline activity because I had no title to bring them on the mountain, but okay, it was an easy hike, so you don't need to be a mountain guide to do this, let's say.
And Stefano, so what happened next? Now, like you're describing a time in your life where you had to reinvent yourself, sort of put together the money to start traveling, to follow your dreams. Then what happened?
This was between 2013 and 2016. After that, I graduated. And when I was giving a guided tour of Modena to one of the guests of my B&B, I randomly met the HR manager of the business school of Bologna in the restaurant where we were eating. She heard me talking in English, and she just offered me a job as a tutor in the business school of Bologna. I did it for 8 months. And at the time, this brought the total number of jobs that I had contemporary at 3. So I was doing those 3 jobs all together. This is how I built an amount of money savings that gave me, let's say, this self-confidence on taking on new adventure. So for 8 months, I had 3 jobs. I saved quite a lot of money, I would say, because it was 3 jobs together. So of course, I had no social life, no possibility to travel. So let's say I had to sacrifice 8 months of my life to build a bank account that was giving me the self-confidence to take on new adventures. And after that, I quit all the jobs. So I closed the B&B. I quit the job on with the AIA, the soccer referee Italian organization. I quit the job at BBS. And I went for 6 months to travel in South America. So I decided, okay, I have enough money by side. It's time to take on the bigger adventure of my life. I circumnavigate Cuba on a boat for 1 month. And I left the country and went to live for several months in Colombia. That's where I worked for 3 months as a bartender in a hostel on the ocean. A hostel that was managed by 2 guys from Brescia, by the way. It was great. One of the best experiences of my life. The money they were giving me was like 300 euros per month, so literally nothing for our Western standards. But I had a private room with nothing inside, only the bed. I had a bed and a shower, nothing else. And I was living on the ocean. So I was opening every morning the room of the place where I was staying, and there was the ocean in front of me. So I was not gaining money, just pocket money, literally. Some food, but I did it because those place was on the ocean. I had my own routine. I was running on the beach every day, meeting different people every day because it was a hostel. So that was how I gave a big push, let's say, to my life routine.
What was like the meaning that you've given to your journeys? Because you must have chosen somehow, like, why, I go to South America, why I go to Colombia, why I do spend 1 month in Thailand or so. So what was the meaning for you going to those
For
places?
me, the meaning of all those challenges that I'm telling you about in the podcast is to be able to say, I did it. This is the deep meaning. Is like you don't really know if you can do something until you do it, right?
Right.
And there is people in our society who are locked in a never-ending loop that it's like, should I do this? Maybe I am able to do it, or maybe not. How do they find out? I don't know. In my case, the way I find out if I am able to do something or not is to try. So I was always wondering, is South America dangerous? Is Colombia dangerous? Those were always places that I had in my bucket list. And the only way to find out at some point, it was not bearable for me to find out if I was able to travel there or not by backpacking and keeping 3 jobs at a time. I had to take a decision. And every time I have to take a decision, guys, I just jump into it.
So what you're saying is just don't overthinking, do it.
Exactly. I didn't overthink. I just felt I reached a point that I wanted to do it. And I just quit everything I had in Italy. And I just went to do it without knowing, without planning what could have been done next. Just at some point when I was there, what brought me back to Europe is that I received a call from my ex-chief animator. So animation in tourist resort. I was doing it just 3 months every year before to gain some money while I was studying at university, okay?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But while I was there, my ex-chief animator called me and said, hey, Ste, there are openings to become chief animator. It's better money, more life will change. You are more in control of the team, so you have a private room where you can stay. Would that interest you? And when he called me, I was doing bartender in Colombia. I felt my South American journey could go on moving in another country, but at the same time, I wanted to earn money because it was 6 months that I was living on my savings, basically. So I kind of felt that job offered was the spring to drag me back to Europe, let's say.
I guess I find the journey very fascinating. I'm sure those listening will also find it fascinating. You've changed a lot. Moved from one type of job to another, one country to another countries. But at the same time, your colleagues from uni or your friends from back home, they were probably doing, the normal path, right? They will start in their careers. Maybe some of them were buying houses, for example. Others perhaps were settling down. Did you ever experience what they call FOMO, fear of missing out? And or did you ever ask yourself, gosh, what am I doing? Like, I'm using all my savings in Colombia. I'm doing all of this, but maybe I should just go and start a normal, quote unquote, a normal job. Did you ever feel that? And how did you handle it, if you did?
FOMO was something the Americans invented studying me, probably. No, I feel it every day, but some studies I did brought me to think that in life you should have no regrets. You should follow your attitude. And my attitude, my inner attitude, and also, inner attitude, let's say, it's to keep moving. I'm a person who I know 100% for sure. I've been talking about this with Ricky several times. He helped me out several times with good suggestions. that it's true. I have this fear of missing out on normal life sometimes, stability. It's not easy to go against every rule that society passes you since you are a child. But I want to live my life with no regrets. And I know that what makes me happy, what makes me excited, is this continued discovering alternative ways of living and this continuously being on the road. It's true that I had to give up on stable relations. I had to give up on a lot of stability. I don't own a house. I actually don't own anything. Like till few months ago, I was owning an old Ford Transit. That was the van where I lived the last 2 years. I lived in a camper. I just wanted to try out and do it. And that was the only thing I was owning. And now I sold it a few months ago. So I don't own anything. And this, of course, in COVID time, this makes you shaking a little bit because you know what I mean? You don't have a house, a roof on your head. You need to reinvent yourself continuously. But it's frightening, but at the same time, it's exciting. And you have to put on a balance. Is it more frightening or more exciting? And I have no doubt that for me, for my character, it's much more exciting to take on new challenges every time and to win them most of the time. This is what keeps me alive. I wouldn't be able to just, being afraid and do a so-called normal life just because of this fear of missing out. It's just, I have it. I face it every day. And every day I go to sleep and I feel I'm winning this fear I have. And there's nothing that makes me more happy than this. So
you decided to live by your values, right? And many people don't feel they're capable of doing that. But at the same time, what you're telling is like you feel scared sometimes. So how did you handle your fear, so that you live by your own values every day? Like there must be times where you feel like it's tough.
In my opinion, there are only two factors that help you to win this fear, as you say. The first key to success in having an alternative lifestyle, it's actually you, Ricky, that transmitted to me many times, and is organization. So I'm not telling you do things without a plan. Like, for example, as I told you before, to achieve this lifestyle, I first had to build some savings by side. I wouldn't recommend to anyone to go to South America without money. You know what I mean? Have some money by side. So the first step is to work, guys. Without working, you don't go anywhere. You need to work enough to build a cushion behind your head. You know what I mean? Something that you know that you have this money in case of emergency. And this, it's thanks to organization. The second key factor to success in a lifestyle like this is to jump, try. Behind in your mind, you have to think that you have to try to find out if it's successful or not. There's people that are good in organization, so they build this money by side easily, but then they are afraid to lose this money or to get into a situation where those money are not enough. You have to organize and try. If you have a passion, if you have something that keeps you moving, if you have something that it's inside your head since a long time, the only way to achieve it is to just leave your fear behind, organize yourself. So don't do it randomly from a day to another, but organize and try. What keeps me going, it's exactly this. For me, I like to keep moving. I know I wouldn't be able to stay 1 or 2 years living in the same place. So I give myself deadlines. You know what I mean? So I organize myself. Okay, now it's time to work. It's time to dedicate my time. That is the most precious thing we have, much more valuable than money. It's time to trade my time with some working, because I know I need money to do what I want. Okay, I fix one amount of money that I need, and when I reach it, I don't get greedy and want more money. When I reach this amount, it's time to get moving. So it's time to quit, change, and go. This is what I did.
I think not easy for most of the people to do, but I think it's very fascinating. When you explain this to people, maybe most of the people won't understand. So I'm sure in your life, as people were trying to understand more about your story, your life decision, you must have struggled sometime to explain why you've taken those paths. What were the challenges that you received when speaking with people about your journey? Like how did you handle those?
My friends always knew that this was my path. So people very close to me never criticized this. Some, let's call them friends that I have / I had, that are not very close. Some, people that you wouldn't call your best friends, but you are friends with somebody. They were doubting. They were doubting if this lifestyle was possible. And myself, after COVID, I was doubting, because, guys, I saw people with a normal life, a normal job, that were facing COVID in a very comfortable way, while for me it was a bigger challenge because I had nothing behind me. I lost the job in 2 seconds because when COVID arrived, I was doing entertainment, so animation in Mauritius Island. And COVID arrived and I was jobless in 4 days. So thanks God, I had this organizational skill and financial management behind. And during the previous years, I was saving money. Otherwise, I had no way to keep going. You know what I mean? And in that moment, I felt maybe the other people were right. But then I just hold on. I reinvented myself. And now we are getting to the past 2 years. I paid part of my savings to subscribe to an academy of food. So I started to study to reinvent myself in COVID time as a cook. And as I told you, when I have an idea, I don't know why inside my head, it's like, I just want to do it. I don't care about the consequences. I could have found an easy job somewhere else, HR, but in my mind, I wanted to learn a job that was spendable abroad as well. So I could my goal was to keep working for some month, saving money, and then traveling, And I thought, I don't want to have a classic job. I want to do the cook because I can work maybe 6 months in Germany, earn money, earn a higher salary, save money, and then keep traveling, as I always did. So even in COVID time, I never gave up on having a classic lifestyle, let's say. I decided to pay 2,000 euros to study gastronomy. I did an internship in my hometown that was not paid, and I was living in a parking lot in this van that I told you. So it was probably the toughest period of my life because I was earning 0. I paid 2,000 for this formation. I was living in a parking lot because, of course, I had only savings by the side. I was not having an income, so I didn't afford to pay a rent somewhere. And I was living in my camper in a parking lot in the main street of Modena. I was not earning anything. And this was 4 months. I did 500 hours of work non retribuito, so not paid. And this was probably really the toughest period of my life, guys. But I always believe that the path I chose was the right one for me. So I didn't give up. And it came an opportunity on the way. I saw a Facebook ad on this new job that I'm doing right now, and that makes me very happy. I'm working now for an American company that has nothing to do, but I finished my cooking internship. Even if now I'm doing a different job, I first finished my cooking internship and I got a diploma from this gastronomic academy. Anticipate your next question. This is my B plan in case the A plan goes wrong. I always have a B plan. And now the B plan is, okay, let's say something goes wrong with my actual job. I know I can cook. I know it's a job that it's well paid in several countries. And I know that it fulfill my main goal, which is to get a job that I can easily quit after a few months. Cooking, you can do it in any restaurant of the world. That means I can work 1 year, save the money I need, quit, travel, and start again somewhere else. And you never regret you quit the place where you work.
I actually have another question, which wasn't the B plan, but it was around conviction, right? In the last 10 minutes, you've been talking about the fact that no matter what, you had this strong conviction that what you were doing was what you wanted to do. Especially when you have tough times like you described, right? During COVID, you have to reinvent yourself, you have to work and study at the same time, and even unpaid work while trying to reinvent yourself. Well, how do you have that strong conviction? How do you keep your conviction strong when the going gets tough?
You always have to ask yourself one question, guys, during your lifetime. Am I happy? It's as simple as that. If the answer to this question, am I happy now? If the answer to this question is no, to me, it's clear that you need to find out how to be happy. You know what I mean? Probably, I don't know, but there are people who answer to this question, no, I am not happy, but it could be worse. You know, this is when you are in your comfort zone. So probably some people answer to that question, you know, I'm not happy, but I know people that are having a worse life than me. The thing is that I'm not afraid. It's like if the answer to this question is no, I am not happy. Like if I have a good job, a house, but I'm going back home and I am not happy. For me, the answer to your question, Eugenio, is very easy. It means I need to do something to change this status. I cannot waste my life thinking, no, I'm not happy, but it could be worse. So why not aiming to what makes me very happy? And when I did myself this question, the answer was, the moment I have been happier the most was when I was sitting outside of the hostel in Colombia, watching the sunset on the ocean. That is one of the moments where I've been happier the most. And that means I know I need to aim to that thing again and again. Otherwise, I will not be happy again that way I felt. You know what I mean? And it's stupid to live out of memories. We are young. We still have a whole life in front of us. We should try till the day we can make it. You know what I mean? This is my philosophy.
So now comes the big question. Will ever Stefano stop somewhere, sometime?
I doubt I will stop. I doubt I will stop somewhere. But in some way, I think I am slowly achieving a more stable lifestyle. Right now, I encountered, for example, the perfect job, which I don't believe it was possible. It's the first time in my life that I picture myself into a job for a very long time. Why? Because in the job I'm currently doing, working in winter, it's optional. And this gives me the possibility and the financial possibility as well to work 6 months every year and travel the other 6 months. And this is the maximum of stability that you will ever see from me, probably. Guys, time is the most important thing we have in life. So what I do is to trade my time for 6 months of a year and not 12 months as most people do. And in exchange of working that hard for a season, I finally get the possibility to live the winter the way I want. Before, when I was working as animator, it was not possible because salaries were too low. And you are not really free, you know what I mean? You have the winter free, it's true, but you have so little money that if you just want to buy a flight to go somewhere outside of Europe, you know what I mean? You had to count the euros at the end of the month. Thanks God, in my new job, this is not, it's not like this. I'm earning enough to have a good winter without the need of counting the money at the end of the month. And that's probably the maximum of stability that you will ever see from me, Riccardo, to answer your question.
That's a lot to unpack. I think we have covered quite a lot of ground. I think I want to come towards the end of the podcast, we discussed a lot of scenario, situation you've been in, decision you made. So if you have to look back, what would you do anything differently? And if so, what would that be, why, and how? That's like 3 questions in one, but
Eugenio, I'm sorry to disappoint you in this, but I wouldn't change anything. There is absolutely nothing I would change, because if I did something in that moment, everything I did brought me to today. I'm doing the job I'm doing right now. I'm having the life I love because I made attempts, you know what I mean? Even if I failed, and I did fail indeed, I had tough times. I didn't enjoy, I tell you straight, I didn't enjoy last winter living in a parking lot, being stuck in one city, because the fun part of living in a camper is that you can live wherever you want. But if you have an internship to attend, it takes the fun part away, let's say. So I didn't enjoy many moments, but I would do them all the way again. I tell you straight, because all of these experiences helped me to find out today what I like, what I don't like, what I want to do, what I don't want to do. And if you don't have and you don't make these mistakes, you would never be able to understand what you really want. So no, I wouldn't change anything of my past.
That's amazing. So what would be, for the people listening, what would be one piece of advice that you would want to give them?
Simply, guys, it's one advice that I feel is the only advice I feel I can give. Because, I mean, my lifestyle, I don't know which under which point of view you can call it successful. For me, it's successful. But from a person that want to make money or have other goals in life, my life is not successful. So the only advice I'm sure I can give is to don't be afraid. Don't let your life being conditioned by what society tried to teach you since you are a child. There is not one way only to be successful. If makes you happy to build a family, own a house, and have a Maserati, then go that way. It doesn't mean it's wrong way. You know what I mean? The thing that I didn't follow that path, it doesn't mean it's wrong. But I know a lot of people that don't look for after this life, but still they are afraid of exit their comfort zone. It's a silly suggestion. It's a common sense suggestion. I know you hear it everywhere, but one more time, please don't be afraid. This is the only thing I can tell you. Jump into things. Act. You know what I mean? If you have something in your mind, use organization. So plan it. Don't do it randomly. Don't do it without planification.
Mhm.
But if you have something in your mind that you know can make you happy, plan it the best you can and try. If you fail, you will find a way to try again. I failed 1,000 times. Riccardo knows that till 33 years old, I had fears. It's like I was not sure I could find the right job to support me alongside this path. And I found it by trying.
Mhm.
Without trying, you will always regret. You will always have regrets. When you try, you don't have regrets because you did the best you could. This is my philosophy and my suggestion.
If I can just summarize what I got from your story, Stefano, I think the number one thing is live by your own values.
Yeah.
And if you decide to do something, if you feel that that something is what you love, what makes you happy, just follow that. Don't fear the unknown. You will try, you will fail, but you eventually reach what you want in life if you really believe it. Trust yourself. And every step matters, so don't be afraid of failing. I think those are very important lessons, Stefano. So thank you very much for sharing and being with us today. It was
Thank
a
you very
pleasure
much,
having you.
Stefano.
It was an honor, guys. I still don't understand why you thought about me for this podcast. I'm honored, and it was a big pleasure to share my life attempts to be happy with you guys. So thank you so much,
Thank you,
guys.
Stefano.
Thanks for the chat.